Adittapariyaya Sutta, which is translated as Things on Fire. It's the third sermon taught by the Buddha at Uruvela Sena Nikom in Rajgir. The stories on this it was described in commentary that the noble disciple explained what was going on. Was not the Buddha's teaching itself, but his commentary by the noble disciple, orally transmitted for 400 and some years until 111 BC. BC was recorded in writing. So about the story behind this group of 1,003 people, the fire worshipper. So there are three brothers who born into the Brahmin, the ancient Hindu tradition. The eldest called Uruvela Kaspa. Kaspa, like the surname of the high priest of Hindu, of Brahmin. The eldest named Uruvela Kaspa. He was fluent. He studied and was very fluent in Rig Veda, the Brahmins' teaching. And but he sees that this lack of the teaching for the present moment of this life. So he kind of took off to be a teacher of this group. They worship fire for cleansing, their mind, and they worship fire. He had about 500 followers. And then he had two other brothers. The middle brother named Nati Kaspa. And the map is, you can see that's Neranchara River. You see at the bottom of the left map on the left is Bodh Gaya, where the Buddha attained enlightenment, full moon, 6 lunar months, 2,614 years ago. And this third sermon was given at full moon of the 12 lunar months, so 6 months later. So he came to kind of guide this group of fire worshippers, because he saw in his vision that this group of people were in the scope of potential to become enlightened. These 1,003 fire worshipper. So they kind of line up along the river. The oldest one at near Bodh Gaya, and it's about 15 kilometers north of Bodh Gaya. And there's Gaya Sisa, it's like a little mound or small mountain where the Buddha used to practice self-mortification there, and not too far from the riverbank. And it's like look like Elephant Head, the mountain named Gaya Sisa, or sometimes called Ramayani Hill. The other name. So Uruverakaspa was a little bit more south, and then Natikaspa in the middle, and then he had about 300 followers practicing in similar fashion, and they all thought they all arahant too, the enlightened one. They themselves thought so. And then the youngest one named Kayakaspa. It was very near that Kayasisa. So downstream, it flowing from the south to the north of Niranjara River. Eventually, we'll go into Ganges, and then the youngest one has 200 followers of Y worshiper. Um, um, One of the main reasons the Buddha came to teach this group of people, also part of it because when he was an ascetic before he attained enlightenment, he met King Bimbisara, who was a ruler, the king of this Rajagir kingdom, one of the largest kingdom in India 2,600 years ago. And King Bimbisara was impressed by the serenity of the Buddha and asked the Buddha to promise him that whenever he attained enlightenment, come back and teach him and his people, his peasants. So the Buddha, on the way back to Rajgir, saw in his vision this 1,003 fire worshipper was the scope of potential to be enlightened, and it would be much easier because they're well respected by the people of Rajgir population. So if we can make them to be Buddhist monk, they're much easier for the people, the peasant, to follow this is teaching the awakened way of life. So he came to meet Uruvela Kaspa. And the story said he asked to stay in the fire hall. And Uruvela Kaspa did not allow that because it's a great serpent there. You will be harmed by the serpent. So the Buddha insists, saying, I'll stay there 3 times. Finally, he gave in. Uruvela Kaspa said, I warn you, it's up to you. It's your own safety. So the Buddha went in and stayed in the firehouse where they worship fire there in the main hall and encountered this great serpent. So the serpent was feeling invaded, so it spit out, fiery smoke or whatever. And the Buddha fought back with his magical power. And those 505 worshippers saw a lot of flame lit up in that house, that firehouse, through the window or whatever, and during that night. So they thought the Buddha would be dead in the morning or so. So by the morning, he was surprised that when they went in, the Buddha was still there, and the serpent was made into a small snake coiled in his arm bowls, the Buddha's arms bowl. So they were impressed by his magical power, by the Buddha's magical power. So and eventually invite him to stay at their place in another living quarter, and they will provide food for him. So the next night in his living quarter, those 501 fire worshippers got surprised that there was a bright light came through that night. The first part of the night, um, bright light from the four kings of the first heavenly realm came by to pay respect and to listen to the teaching of the Buddhas. And the second part of the night, Indra, who was the rulers of the heavenly realm from the second to the sixth heavenly realm, of all six there. He ruled all six there. But he stayed in the third level. He came by and paid respect to the Buddha with brighter light during the night, in the middle of the night, and then to hear the teaching of the Buddhas. And then the latter part of the night, the Brahma, Sahambadi Brahma, the highest divine form realm king, came by and paid respect to the Buddha. There's even brighter light in his living quarter. Sahambadi Brahma came to pay respect to the Buddha and listen to the Buddha's teaching. So in the morning they asked, Uruvela asked, what happened last night? Saw a bright light there, even brighter the latter part of the night. So the Buddha explained, this is what happened. It was the four kings of the first level, heavenly realm, Indra, who rules all the sixth realm, heavenly realm, and somebody from Brahma, the king of the form divine realm, came by and paid respect to me and listened to my teaching. So they were impressed by his, like greatness. But they thought to themselves, oh, he got a lot of magical power, got up, but I'm the enlightened one, so not as good as he is. The Uruvela thought he's better. Then some other day, um, the Buddha, one time they're going to celebrate in the fire worshipping. It's a big ceremony. They're afraid that the Buddha would interfere because he's had a lot of magical power. People will come to flock and worship him instead. So they didn't want him to come out. So the Buddha understood that, and he left to get food in the northern country, Uttarapradesh, and he just ate there by himself, and then they came by after the ceremony, said, you didn't show up, what happened? He said, oh, I went to Uttar I know you don't want me to come out. So they were frightened by he could read his mind. So you don't want me to come out, so I didn't come. I went to get my arms around somewhere else. And some other time he come to invite him for lunch, and then the Buddha said, go ahead, I'll follow you. And then by the time we reached the dining hall, the Buddha's there. Sometimes brought back like black or Java plum, Indian gooseberry, and mangoes, which is not local there. It's from the other part of the country of India. So they were surprised how come we got there quicker and got all those fruits. So, oh, he got a lot of magical power, but not as good as I am because I'm the arahant, the enlightened one. Sometimes he brought back um, the heavenly flower, Parichat flower. So he was Uruvarakaspa, the oldest one, was frightened by the Buddha's magical power, but still think he's better because he's the enlightenment, not the Buddha. And then another time, the Buddha wanted to get some ropes, so they have to get the shroud from the corpse. He pulled the shroud, so you need to clean that shroud first because it's wrapping the corpse. So Indra, the heavenly king that came by in the middle of the night, came by and dug up a pond for him so he can wash and make up some stone slab so he can like clean up the shroud, and then got some trees that he can hang the cloth and can dry it up on another stone slab and so on. So they were surprised what happened. How come there's this thing happened? The next day, uh, the Buddha explained what it was and what happened, and they were impressed, but still think he's better. He's the arahant, not the Buddha. Uh, and another time, um, they were like they were practicing like fire worshipping, but those 500 fire worshipper could not chop up the wood for some reason until the Buddha said, "Go ahead and chop it," and they can chop the wood, and then they couldn't lift up the fire until the Buddha said so. So they were quite impressed with that, and because sometimes they went down to bathe and come up need fire to warm themselves. They couldn't lit up the fire and so on. And another time, he was there was some flash flood during the night, and the Buddha was staying in the path of the flash flood. So they thought the next day they said, "Oh, he must be swept by the flood already." So they took out a boat and looked for him and found he was doing walking meditation on the dry land, like a small island there, without being harmed. So I was quite impressed by his magical power. Yeah. It, so, but still think I'm better than the Buddha because I'm the enlightened one, not the Buddha. The Buddha read his mind, said, "Stop lying to yourself. You're not an enlightened one. And what you're practicing will lead to nothing. It will never lead you to enlightenment." So he was very impressed. Now he bowed down, prostrate to the Buddha, and want to be ordained as a monk, Buddhist monk. And the Buddha asked him, "What happened to your follower? Did you ask them what they want to do?" So all 500 of his followers said, "We are ready. We want to be ordained too." So, so they kind of like throw away all their headgear and their robe, some of the tiger skin and so on, down the river. So, so the middle brother saw that they thought something bad happening. How come all this their belonging, their oldest brother and followers belonging floating down the river? So they rush up to meet him and found out a story, the truth about it. So they want to be ordained. Another 300 and 301 became Buddhist monk as well. And then the youngest brother saw the same thing. Another 200 in one came. So 1,003 fire worshipper became Buddhist monk then. Buddha ordained all of them. So by the full moon of the 12 lunar months, he gathered all of them, 1,003 monks, and gave this Adittapariyaya Sutta, means things on fire, which is the third major sermon Buddha taught. It's at the Uruvara Senanikom in Rajgir at Kayasisa, which is 15 kilometers north of Bodh Gaya. I show you on the map. Or the Elephant Head Mountain. The area called Kaya. Sisa means head. Full moon of the 12 lunar months. 26 and 14 years ago. And this is the current day at Kayasisa, sometimes called Brahmayoni Hill. There's a monument there where the Buddha gave this talk, Adittapariyaya Sutta. So he start with this fire sermon, say to this fire worshipper, say, what is a flame? Buddha said, he asked and answered himself, say, form or sight is a flame, eye is a flame. It's through the six sense spheres. You know, tăng bà điện mà. External, internal sphere, and as well as eye consciousness is a flame. And contact with the eye, whatever arisen in dependence on contact with the eye is a flame. And feeling that arise, experience as pleasure, pain, neither pleasure or pain, flame. A flame with passion, aversion, or fail to see impermanence, or greed-headed delusion, with greed and desire and passion, hatred or aversion, and delusion. All these are a flame. A flame because it's emerging, decaying, disappearing. Most of the time they translate as birth, aging, and death. I think it's out of context. It should be those phenomena emerge, decay, disappear. And then it's settled with sorrow, lamentation, pain, distresses, despair, because you didn't get what you want, or got what you don't want, and so on. With passion, aversion, and ignorance. So they all flame. Then he went on another sense sphere, which is so sounds and ears. Sounds a flame, ears is flame. Ear consciousness is flame. Contact with the ear is a flame. Whatever arisen in dependence on contact with the ear, because it results in the experiences pleasure, pain, neither pleasure or pain. And end up with a flame with passion, aversion, or ignorance, not seeing the three universal marks of impermanence, imperfection, and non-self. A flame from the emerging, decaying, disappearing from such experience, sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, despair. A flame. He went on. Odors, smell is the flame. Nose is a flame. Nasal consciousness is a flame. Contact with the nose is a flame. Whatever arisen in dependence on contact with the nose is the flame. So the feeling as we experience as pleasure, pain, neither pleasure or pain is a flame with passion, or greed, hatred, or aversion, or delusion, or your ignorance, not seeing the true nature of things. A flame from emerging, decaying, disappearing of such phenomena. Sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, despair, through the nose, exposure, contact. Then he went on and say, flavors, or taste is a flame, tongue is a flame, tongue consciousness is a flame. Contact with the tongue is a flame. Whatever arisen in dependence on contact with the tongue is a flame. The feeling that experiences pleasure, pain, neither pleasure or pain is a flame. A flame of passion or greed, from greed, aversion from hatred, and ignorance, delusion. It's a flame from the emerging, decaying, disappearing of such phenomena. Sorrow, lamentation, pain, distress, despair, settle in. Make it a flame burning inside. So touch or tactile sensation with body contact, they are all a flame. So is the body consciousness. It's a flame. Contact with the body is a flame. Whatever arisen independence of contact with the body is the flame. So the feeling is one experience with pleasure, pain, neither pleasure or pain is a flame. A flame with passion, from greed, desire, aversion, from your hatred, and ignorance or delusion. A flame from the emerging, decaying, disappearing of such phenomena. The contact and the consequence, settled with sorrows, lamentation, pain, distresses, and despair. So mind is the same too. Thoughts is the flame, mind is a flame, mental consciousness is the flame. Contact with the mind is a flame. Whatever arisen independence on contact with the mind is a flame. Experience of, or your feeling of pleasure, pain, neither pleasure or pain is a flame. A flame with passion, or from greed and desire, aversion, from hatred, and ignorance, failing to see the true nature of things, impermanence, imperfection, and non-self, or delusion, is a flame. A flame from emerging, decaying, disappearing in such phenomena that's going on, resulting in sorrow, lamentation, pain, distresses and despair. So everything is a flame. So they listen to it and instructed, become noble disciples. They get disenchanted in the eyes and the sight. They are all flame, ears and nose and so on, and the corresponding consciousness. So it's the ear, the sounds, and ear consciousness. They get disenchanted. In the nose, the smell and nasal consciousness. Disenchanted in the tongue, the taste, tongue consciousness. Body contact, touch, and body consciousness. It's all flame. Get disenchanted in the mind, the thought, the mind called mental consciousness. You get disenchanted in all the six sense spheres and corresponding consciousness. External, internal sphere as well as the corresponding consciousness. They get disenchanted in the contact that resolved through those six sense spheres. Disenchanted in whatever arisen independence on the contact of such contact. Disenchanted in the feeling that one experiences, pleasure, pain, neither pleasure or pain. And what happened next is, once they're disenchanted, they get dispassionate, discern, or liberate, release from suffering. No more fire. Get rid of the flame. Inside, wisdom arises, realizing the liberation, or asavakajayana, that birth is ended, the holy life fulfilled, task is done. There's nothing else further beyond this. All 1,003 fire worshipper became the arahant, the fully enlightened one, at the end of this sermon.